Hello, CTO Demonettes. Well, some of you who follow my IG account especially will notice that recently there's an appearance of a new character on my account, apart from the CTO Demonette, and that's the Labubu. Labubu, for those who don't know, is this soft toy that's developed by a Hong Kong person who's actually living in Northern Europe somewhere. And it's been taken on by fashion because of certain members of Blackpink carrying them around. And I have succumbed to the fashion and been carrying a Labubu around. And this fashion of Labubu is quite strong. There's a huge wave, and everybody's taking over, and everybody's photographing and showing cases of Labubu standing there next to a sunset, next to a vineyard, next to a beautiful beach. And I'm guilty of that too. Fashion is an interesting thing because the same fashion burst wave of Labubu also happened in the CTO world. There's big fashion now of HDR, hydrodynamic recanalization. But we got to be careful of these fashion bursts in CTO intervention. And the reason is simple. The Labubu only wastes one iPhone photo. That's the limited damage of the Labubu. The worst thing it can do is to waste one extra photo on your iPhone. Not so HDR. It can harm your patient on the table. So we got to be very careful in chasing these fashions of CTO. And we remember there were fashions before. This is not the first time some newfangled CTO technique took up very greatly. Remember Stingray? There was one point where people were doing Stingray in 50% of their cases. And now, 2%, 4% at most. I mean, it goes to show that if you embrace it as a fashion, you probably end up doing more harm to your patients than good. And you're not just wasting one iPhone photo, you're actually harming your patients. So we need to be careful. Even as I did the previous 3D wiring videos, you notice I put very clear anatomical bracket around 3D wiring. You must have a clear intimal path. I don't recommend you use 3D wiring for all CTOs. That would be crazy and harmful. And in the end, probably most of the CTO demerits are using 3D wiring mainly in ISR CTO, a very small proportion of CTOs. And that is good. It's a technique that works well there. And I think we need to accept as innovators of new CTO technique that our technique is not going to be the one magic solution to all CTO problems. It's going to be applicable to all cases. We need to accept logically, soberly, and clearly that our technique may be applicable to, if we are lucky, 0.5%, like the 0.5 mils, 0.5% of all CTOs. And overuse is a bad thing. And we should caution our followers not to overuse our technique. That's the responsibility of the innovator. But having said all that, the remaining questions now are, number one, can the current HDR method that's been described in this paper in 2024, can this method be further improved to make it safer and better? And I believe the answer is yes. And of course, more videos to come to tell you why and how. Number two, can we reduce the contrast volume further? And I believe the answer is also yes. Number three, can we select the coronary anatomy better, for which cases are good for HDR? And I believe the answer is also yes, or in upcoming videos. But I want to take my hat off at this point to Carlino. Carlino, as you know, he's a master of CTO intervention, and he's definitely one of the cornerstones of CTO technique. Regardless of what people think of his technique, he's a cornerstone. I mean, from 2008, where he first described the technique, he's worked hard at changing it, modifying it, altering it, using it, promoting it. And I don't think the CTO world will ever be a CTO world that's without Carlino. He's put his mark on it. He's a landmark personality in the CTO world. And I, like him, I think, I want to have his technique in my armamentarium. And I do. I mean, I've used it. But a very low rate. I mean, we're probably talking about 1 in 250 CTOs that use Carlino. That's the kind of rate. It's a point something percent range, but I've used it, to be honest. And I think this HDR technique may make it safer and better for more cases, increasing the percentage. But I think we need to be sober and logical to really analyze which are the cases it's likely to work in. And I think we also need to have some backup methods to bail out. So I think actually, my dear friend Scott always says that it's very difficult to get convergence in the global CTO world. And now we see a divergence, of course, since the global CTO algorithm. On one side is HDR, one side is 3D wiring, and TD-ADR with IVA's guidance. But I think there is a possibility of future convergence. I'm an optimist. And I believe that, the TD-ADR is a very good method to bail out when HDR contrast has gone suboptimal. And so I don't think it's not a good thing that there's some divergence. The divergence means some parts of the world can develop a technique that may be very good at dealing with problems another technique another part of the world develops that brings up. Together, this divergence allows each part of the world to explore their techniques to excellence. We don't want to be very strict parents and just say, you have to play the violin, or you have to learn mathematics, or you have to play chess. We don't want to be like that. We want to let the children play what they want to play. You want to paint, you can paint. You want to do sculpture, you can do sculpture. You want to play baseball, you can play baseball. You want to play rugby, you can play rugby. Develop your talents. And so I think some divergence is not a bad thing in the world. And I suspect at the end of it, we will still be able to reach another convergence in the future when we realize our techniques are very complementary. And I see HDR potentially as a very complementary technique to 3D wiring and to TD-ADR. So there's some hope. I think there's a silver lining in the cloud, if you would, in the CTO world. On that very optimistic note, I would like to complete this 3 short videos on HDR. And again, as usual, wish you all the luck in exploring new CTO techniques and in your CTO intervention. Bye for now.